Hey guys, let's get more news about Steelers, but first, don't forget to subscribe and leave your like. Pittsburgh Steelers breaking, quarterback situation suddenly changes days before Raiders game. The quarterback situation for the Pittsburgh Steelers drastically changed on Wednesday. Justin Fields has been the team's starting quarterback through the first 5 games of the season as Russell Wilson battles a calf injury he suffered before training camp this summer. Fields is 92 of 236 for 961 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 1 interception this season. He's added 172 yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground. Fields' numbers have been enough to keep Pittsburgh in the hunt to win the AFC North, but the offense could use a little more juice than the game management style of play the former Chicago Bears quarterback provides. Per the Steelers' website, Wilson was a full participant at practice on Wednesday, the first time he's been a full participant since the regular season started. Head coach Mike Tomlin said this week that Pittsburgh's situation is different this week, but wanted to wait to see how the veteran quarterback does in practice before deciding to move on from Fields. First, we'll see if Wilson is able to obviously pull it off and get through the session, Tomlin said. And if he does, what does the quality of that work look like? His ability to protect himself, etc., are some of the conversations that we've been having, but just in a hypothetical way. Wilson worked with the second team on Wednesday. Tomlin wanted Fields to work with the first team while the team evaluated how mobile Wilson was at practice. If Wilson shows he's the better quarterback in practice, the Steelers could make a quarterback switch soon. Steelers trade pitch flips Russell Wilson, replaces him with $38 million QB. The Pittsburgh Steelers have a handful of options under center, including replacing Russell Wilson with a younger player to compete with /backup current starter Justin Fields. A handful of teams may be interested in Wilson's services, including the Las Vegas Raiders. Wilson's minimum salary would be attractive for teams, assuming he would waive his no-trade clause, Jeremy Fowler of ESPN reported on Wednesday, October 9. And the Raiders were once on his desired list of destinations. If the Steelers decided to move off Wilson, who they are paying just $1.2 million this year and who has yet to take a single regular season snap, it would mean with certainty that they believe in Fields as the starter for at least the rest of the season. However, Fields is not without his flaws and is also playing on the final year of his rookie contract. He will be an unrestricted free agent in March 2025 if he doesn't extend with Pittsburgh before then. That fact opens up the possibility that Pittsburgh could be in the market for another QB ahead of the NFL's November 5 trade deadline. One player who may be available is former number 1 overall pick Bryce Young of the Carolina Panthers. Adam Schefter of ESPN reported in September that the Panthers are most likely to try and move Young during the offseason. However, Christopher Knox of Bleacher Report suggested on Wednesday that those circumstances might change in the coming weeks. A strong offer may change the Panthers' plans, of course, and getting a jump on the 2025 market would make sense for teams in need of a long-term QB plan, Knox wrote. Fields is still young enough to be a long-term solution for Pittsburgh. If his play slips, however, Young could be the next former first-rounder on whom the Steelers take a flyer. Young is playing in the second season of his 4-year, $38 million rookie contract that includes a team option for 2027. Although Mike Tomlin on Tuesday listed Jaylen Warren as doubtful to play on Sunday, the latter evidently thinks otherwise. In fact, he didn't even want Tomlin to pull him out of the game a few weeks ago when he came up hobbling. Warren practiced yesterday and seemed more confident that he could play than did his head coach. The Steelers been less effective running the ball without Jaylen Warren, especially after factoring for QB Justin Fields' off-script runs. A lot of that has to do with the offensive line, of course, which has dealt with injuries all year. But they have also faced stacked boxes, and Najee Harris has been up and down in his quality of performance. Many believe that Warren is the better of the Steelers' 2 running backs. But he has struggled to stay healthy so far, going back to training camp. Considering Tomlin viewed him as doubtful to play against the Las Vegas Raiders, odds are he would be playing through injury if he were to return this week. The Steelers set up to run the ball this past Sunday against a Cowboys defense that struggled to stop it. That proved a much more difficult assignment than they anticipated, leading many to long for Warren's return. With both Warren and Cordarrelle Patterson out last week, the Steelers promoted Jonathan Ward from the practice squad, having previously promoted from their Aaron Shamklin to the 53-man roster. They technically have enough bodies at the running back position, but what can they do with them? Jaylen Warren has 54 yards on 14 carries this season, plus 28 yards and 5 receptions. He rushed for 784 yards in 2023 on just 149 carries, adding 370 receiving yards. When healthy, he is liable to split snaps with Harris roughly 50-50, though not necessarily touches. The Steelers have clearly felt his absence the past 2+ games since going down with an injury. If they can get Jaylen Warren back this week, can he provide the spark their run game clearly needs? I shouldn't have said it, Cowboys' Jourdan Lewis regrets calling George Pickens weak. Moments after the clock hit triple zeros to close out the 20-17 win for the Dallas Cowboys over the Pittsburgh Steelers in Week 5 on Sunday Night Football, Steelers wide receiver George Pickens yanked Cowboys cornerback Jourdan Lewis to the turf in a moment of frustration that has drawn Pickens plenty of criticism in the days since. Shortly after the game, while walking into the locker room, Lewis made sure reporters heard him, calling Pickens weak and stating the Steelers needed to find another receiver because the third-year receiver wasn't good enough. In the days since that incident on the field and Lewis' comment, cooler heads have prevailed. Lewis, who spoke to Cowboys media Wednesday, stated he regretted the incident and shouldn't have made those comments in the heat of the moment. "Honestly, I shouldn't have said that. It was an emotional game. There was some chatter on the field. One thing led to another. He had a moment. I had a moment. It was too emotional. I shouldn't have said it," Lewis said of the George Pickens comment, according to a tweet from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram's Nick Harris. It wasn't a great night for George Pickens overall. He finished with just 3 receptions for 26 yards, hauling in just 1 pass for 8 yards in the first half. Though he had a 21-yard catch and run in the fourth quarter to set up tight end Pat Freiermuth's touchdown catch, Pickens was held in check all night long despite his message on his iBlack about being open all the time. George Pickens was also on the bench at times, playing a career low in snaps with just 34 against the Cowboys, something that head coach Mike Tomlin attested to, aiming to get higher quality reps and managing Pickens' output to help him be more productive. All of that combined into the emotional display that George Pickens had at the end of the game, yanking Lewis to the turf, leading to Lewis' comments. He might regret them and say it was an emotional moment for both parties, but he said what he said, and there's no going back. Some agree with what Lewis said, too, as George Pickens once again finds himself in the spotlight for the wrong reasons. And you, fan? What do you think of the situation of Jourdan Lewis? Leave your opinion in the comments.